I'd like to call this meeting to order. Please stand for our invocation led by Mr. Mason Howard and our pledge of allegiance by Mr. Jerry Atkins.
Father God, we thank you just again for the ability and opportunity to come and deliberate and discuss the business of our district. Father, I thank you for the wonderful district, Lord, that we are a part of. Father, just the tremendous people, Father, and the kids who make up our district, God, who make it all worthwhile. I pray that you would be with us tonight as we deliberate over the business. God, help us just to have wisdom. God, I pray that you would just honor us, Lord, with your presence. Help in all of our decisions tonight, dear God, just to bring honor to you. Father, I pray that you would be with the board. Father, be with all of our employees. God, and especially just be with each child who is a part of our district. God, help us to do the very best for them. In your Son's precious and holy name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. On the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. We have a lot of celebrations this evening, so I'd like to ask the board to begin making their way to the front and transition to our awards, achievements, and recognitions. And we'll now turn over to the Carl Tristan. That's part of the recognition.
You are so right, Mr. Cookie. Very best part of the meeting. We're going to change up again, board members. I believe Dr. Halaskis told you. Good evening, President Cook, Dr. Halaskis, Superintendent, board members, and guests. It is always my pleasure to bring the awards, achievements, and recognitions of our district to the board. This evening, we have a lot to celebrate. Mr. Cook, I'm glad that you're there. If you will stand right down there, you will be assisting us with the certificates. And now, without further ado, I will turn this over to Mr. Dan Schaefer, our Chief Business and Governmental Affairs Officer.
Good evening. BISD bestows the Extra Mile Award to community members and organizations that truly go the extra mile for our students. This last month, the Lake Jackson Fire Department, EMS, and Fire Marshal went the extra mile and then some by sponsoring and financially supporting the BISD program after the fire. Representing these three groups this evening, would you please join us? Randy Krim, Fire Marshal, City of Lake Jackson. Lake Jackson Volunteer Fire Department. EMS Chief, Lake Jackson EMS Chief. Zero, Administrative Assistant, Lake Jackson EMS Inc.
Good evening. It's my honor to present to you the HeartWorks recipient for April, Ms. Kimberly Zeal. Ms. Zeal is an assistant principal at T.W. Ogg Elementary. Ms. Zeal received the HeartWork nomination for the T.W. Ogg counselor, Ms. Gresham. Ms. Gresham appreciates Ms. Zeal's ability to positively impact student behavior, as well as her talent for motivating students by finding interactive and fun ways to help modify student behavior. Ms. Zeal's flexibility and resourcefulness are greatly appreciated, as are her commitment and willingness to go the extra mile for students on her campus. Ms. Zeal, please accept this dinner for two from our 4 BISD Kids partner, El Chicos, and a certificate on behalf of Dr. Alachka and the board for going above and beyond to make BISD a great place to work.
students who not only had high academic achievement, but also for participation, leadership in student activities, and for good citizenship. Distinguished students must have a 3.0 cumulative grade point average based on at least 24 hours of college-level work, must have met all TSI requirements, must be enrolled for at least 6 hours in the spring semester, and must be nominated for this award by college faculty and staff. A standing committee at BC makes the final selection of not more than 20 students each year. BISD is pleased to announce that Brazos Wood High School senior Jody Settle was awarded this prestigious honor this semester. This year, the top speller of the DeZoria County Spelling Bee was Hans Agarwal, 5th grade student at Rasco Middle School. Spelling Bee winner, Hans went on to compete in Houston Public Media Spelling Bee in March.
BISD is proud to announce our partnership with Dow and the first year participation in the You Be the Chemist Challenge. The You Be the Chemist Challenge is a fun and interactive academic competition that engaged students in 5th through 8th grades in learning about important chemistry concepts, scientific discoveries, and laboratory safety. BISD had 300 students take the qualifying exam for a chance to represent their campus as one of the 40 students in the first BISD You Be the Chemist local challenge. The top 4 winning students at the local challenge advanced to compete at the state challenge hosted at the Museum of Natural Science in Houston on April 26, 2014. We would like to recognize the following students for their advancement to the state challenge and their outstanding achievements. For Lake Jackson Intermediate, Aria Stefan.
Students receive honors. Sean Newcomb. Sean is a junior at Brazos High School. He's currently taking first year welding at Brazos Ford High School under the direction of James Craner. Sean recently participated in the regional and state competition with the Texas and Family themed car that built and personally designed for Mike and Sue Norrell of Lake Jackson. The project took approximately 3 months to complete, mostly at night at the class shop. Good job, Sean. Our winner was James Crocker. James is a sophomore at Brazos Wood High School. He's currently taking first year welding over at Brazos Wood High School. He recently participated in the regional state competition with a 400-pound barbecue pit themed especially for a sponsor for Judge Justin Thompson Lake Jackson. James Andrew Salinas is a junior at Brazos Wood High School. He's currently taking first year welding over at Brazos Fort. He also recently participated in the regional competition with the same 400-pound barbecue pit and won best in state. Very proud of his accomplishments. Thank you. Giovanni Espinoza. Giovanni is an advanced welding student that will be graduating from Brazos High School at the end of this month. He also recently participated in a regional and state competition with a saltwater fish themed Superior Fishing Rod Rack and made himself. He also won best in state for the state champion for his project. Matthew Nichols. Matthew is a junior at Brazos Fort High School. He is also a first-year welding student and participated in the same competition. He and his partner
won the Best in State or state champion for their project classification. His partner is Alejandro Ortiz. Alejandro is also a first-year welding student, and he also joined with his partner Matthew, won Best in State for his project, which was a 1,300-pound trailer cowboy themed barbecue pit and smoker. We have Felix Rivera. Felix is a senior at Brushwood High School, has been in our culinary program for 2 years. He comes from a restaurant background. His uncle owns ARs in Freeport, and he has been accepted at the August Escoffier School for Culinary Arts, and he wants to pursue in culinary dreams in Austin, hopefully opening his own retro dining experience.
NPRs from the top to celebrate extraordinary young classical performance. Representing Mr. Bill Hughes Brazoswood High School Choir is Ms. Catherine Leiba. Our next two students are both sixth graders at Rasco. Their artwork was chosen out of students from all over the Houston area to represent Reliant Power of Art. It was voted for online. There were only 3 winners in the Houston area, and 2 of them were from Rasco. Under the direction of Miss Catherine Baldwin, we have Nicholas Zuniga, who won $2,000 for the school art program. And Trinity Erickson, who won $2,000 for our school art program. The Visual Arts Scholastic event. One more. The Visual Arts Scholastic event, or VASE, is the visual arts equivalent of UIL. Brazoswood High School, under the direction of Miss Emily Middleton, and Miss Patricia Huntress, are Mackenzie Patero, and Jessica Torres. The following students won awards at the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo Art Competition. They're from Brazoswood High School, also under the direction of Miss Emily Middleton and Mrs. Patricia Huntress. Camille Motsky, gold medal winner, artwork auction for $20,000. Namisha Jane, Best in Show. Her artwork auction for $16,000. Maria Simpson, Special Merit Award. The LaSalle School of Art Scholarship winner. And Morgan Platt, Special Merit Award, the LaSalle School of Art Scholarship winner.
This is that pause I told want to swap out or some people are waiting, might just take a pause. But again, you're welcome to sit.
Thank you. BISD has a long and proud tradition of excelling in extracurricular programs, and this spring was no different. It is my pleasure to introduce our student athletes and teams advancing past district competition. First is the Brazosport girls track team, coached by Joseph Granville. State qualifier, fourth in the entire state in the long jump event is Jasmine Harris. Mercedes Stromler also is a regional qualifier. For the Brazosport boys track team, coached by Robert Jones, we have regional qualifier Nathan Lewis. The Brazos Woods girls track team, coached by Sheila Austin. We have area qualifier Jade Brown, regional qualifier Jordan Carter, regional qualifier Kristen Kutosh, regional qualifier Rachel Mack, regional qualifier Anna Marie McKenzie, regional qualifier Jessica Myers, regional qualifier Sophia Moran, and regional qualifier Unique Ortiz. The Brazos Wood boys track team, coached by Devin Ferrio. Area qualifier David Davis. Area qualifier Michael Spears. Area qualifier Bryce Wade. Area qualifier Brian Quant. Area qualifier Javier Lopez. Regional qualifier Chris Landon. And regional qualifier Cam Therio. Now the Brazos Wood boys soccer team, coached by Ramsey Wright. First team all-district, Aaron Frazier. First team All-District, Skylar Dildell. First team All-District, Alex Martinez. First team All-District, Victor Damian. Now, our Brazos Woods girls soccer team were by-district champions, area champions, and regional semifinalists, coached by Kelsey Ragsdale. First team All-District, Elise Lesko. Kelsey Phillips. Carolina Garcia. Anna Sherian. Cecily Dureka. Callie Kiefer. First team All-District, Emmy Tate. Perla Haldiji. Lindsay Thompson. Austin Strobel. Alyssa Bowers, first team All-District. Taylor Knapp. Kelly Meyer. Caitlin Davis. Gabriela Rodriguez. Courtney Garner. Carrie Funk. Alicia Lopez. Christian Damian. Ana Yancy Sanchez. The Brazos Sport boys soccer team. Abraham Rodriguez. Abraham was named the Brazos Sport Facts Brazoria County Player of the Year also in first team All-District. Aurelio Rodriguez Jr., first team All-District. Omar Serrano, first team All-District. Paul Nunez, first team All-District. Fernando Serrano, first team All-District. Eric Covarrubias, first team All-District. They're coached by Silver Martinez, who was also named the Brazos Sport Facts Brazoria County Coach of the Year. The Brazos Sport Girls Soccer Team, coached by Steve Slater. Angie Loya, first team All-District. Marcy Rosario, first team All-District. Emmy Jenkins, first team All-District. Brittany Gomez, first team All-District. our Brazos Wood Water Polo State qualifiers. They ended up 8th place in the state. Seventh, thank you. Even better. Jacob Albers. Luke Bateman. David French. Andy Seymour. Anthony McAllister. Jameson Hunter. Sean Fatty. Ryan Brown. Ethan Gray. Nick Harpham. Tanner Adams. Joe Bennett Rubio. Connor Costello. Jackson Fielding. And Coach Robert Brown. Thank you. This concludes our May Awards, Achievements, Recognitions. Thank
Thank you. A lot of success. It's really cool to see. And this time in accordance with policy BISD local, the board will invite an audience with individuals to sign up prior to the meeting to address the board. However, tonight we don't have any of those requests, so we'll move on to our next item on the agenda. And the next item on the agenda is executive session.
Absolutely.
Which may be called for the purposes permitted by the Texas Open Meeting Act, Texas Government Code Section 551001 through 551146, Section 551071 consultation with attorney, and Section 551074 personal matters including appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, dismissal, and complaint. We will return shortly. Thank you. We will now reconvene from executive session. The time is 7:23. Does anyone wish to pull any items from the consent agenda for discussion? All right, is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda? Is there a second? Second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed by nay. So the consent agenda passes. Our first action item is consideration of termination of employee contracts. Mr. Whitehead.
Thank you. Board members, on behalf of the Brazos Port ISD administration, the superintendent recommends the termination of Oscar Sanchez's term contract and Mitchell Hernandez's probationary contract for the reasons outlined in executive session, which include contract abandonment. It further recommends that the superintendent be authorized to notify the above stated employees of this board's action.
So moved.
Mr. President, I move that the board approve the recommendation of the superintendent to terminate Oscar Sanchez's loan contract and Mitchell Hernandez's probationary contract for the reasons outlined in executive session, and that the superintendent be authorized to notify the above stated employees of this board's actions.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Howard. Second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by nay. Motion carries. Our next item is declaration of abandonment of contract by Sherry Lane.
Board members, on behalf of the Brazosport ISD administration, the superintendent recommends Sherry Fugate Lang's midterm resignation not be accepted for reasons outlined in executive session. It further recommends that the board declare abandonment of contract and determine that good cause for resignation does not exist.
Mr. President, I move that the board declare abandonment of contract with Sherry Fulgate Lang and determine that good cause for resignation does not exist.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by nay. Thank you. The motion carries. Our next action item is consideration of proposed termination of Sherry Lane.
Board members, on behalf of the Brazosport ISD administration, the superintendent recommends the proposed termination of Cherry Fugate Lang's term contract for the reasons outlined in executive session, which include contract abandonment. It further recommends that the superintendent be authorized to notify Ms. Lang of the board's actions.
Mr. President, I again move that the board approves this recommendation of the superintendent to propose the termination of Cherry Fulgate Lang's term contract for the reasons outlined in executive session, and that the superintendent be authorized to notify Ms. Lang of this board's actions.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by nay. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Whitehead. Our next action item is the Brazosport ISD Education Foundation Steering Committee.
Thank you. It's good not being on that list.
We can add it if you want.
Good evening. The following is in alignment with the board's district strategic objective to provide adequate resources through alternate funding. The good news is we have a foundation. It was formed back in October of 2002. As you may recall, the primary goal was to establish a scholarship program, which is to grow your own teacher. Very successful program. Brought in a number of qualified candidates to our district. We appreciated the services that they provided. Basically, we would provide a scholarship in exchange for them to return for 4 years of service.
Not two, like I said.
Yeah, that was a correction. I was corrected. I made a mistake, sorry. A few years ago, obviously during the financial crisis, we're not in hiring mode, so there wasn't a need to continue that effort, and it has not been reinstated to date. Last year, the focus of the foundation shifted to a teacher grant program, which teachers applied for individual grants, and they were awarded. The primary fundraiser is a huge event each year called the Gala. It netted over $50,000 each year, very supported in the area, a lot of participation, and in general, a pretty good time. But basically, over the last year, that program the Gala did not occur. The foundation has been rather dormant. Obviously, in order to actively seek funds, foundations are a great way to do this. It's outside of the school district. It's a separate tax ID number. It limits liability from a district perspective. And as we've seen in other areas, if you expand foundation activity, typically you're going to expand the dollars that are going to be associated and available to the district for purposes either expanding what we're currently doing, additional programs, supporting current programs better, and so on and so forth. So what we're looking at is in order to actively seek additional resources of revenue, it's important to have an active foundation who works closely with the district. This will ensure efforts are coordinated and in alignment with overall district goals. Clearly, we want everybody to move in the same direction, and the funds to be working in conjunction with what we're currently doing. donation efforts, what we're seeing this year is that a lot of local businesses are requiring 501c3 status, which the district does not have. We do, even though we can provide them a letter and it would be tax exempt, a lot of the local organizations are saying we want to see a 501c3 status nonprofit, so they can ensure that their contributions are tax deductible. As with any organization, the setup is critical. Foundation development consultants offer services to ensure foundations are set up and structured correctly to generate the best possible results for the district and community. Looking at the resume and past successes, FDC has a long list, including a lot of local area districts, Region 4 coverage. We're looking to utilize these services as well to either restructure what we currently have or if recommended, create a new one. And after review of the current documents and discussions with the parties involved, which includes the existing foundation and obviously the district, we will provide a recommendation to the board at a later date. The fee for the service is $18,500, but what will typically happen is the foundation will apply for a grant to get reimbursed the majority of the cost. The roles and responsibilities of the steering committee, which is what the board is considering this evening, is included in your packet along with the timeline. It would be a multi-month process in order to try to get everything set up in a manner that would be beneficial in the long term. At this time, administration recommends that the Board of Trustees approve the formation of a BISD Education Foundation Steering Committee to work with FDC to reestablish an active education foundation for BISD.
As a steering committee, members going to be selected?
It'll be made up of the current foundation board, who would like to serve, and then members of the district. Typically, the recommendations in there would be my position, a superintendent's position, a member for curriculum, in order to have the steering committee established.
No teachers?
It wasn't recommended to have a teacher, but it's up to the district as to who we want to have on the committee. Obviously, we want to keep them in the classroom as much as we can. This is for the setup of the foundation, so those that would be actively involved, not necessarily determining the benefits. This is a strictly set up for administration type items, and obviously pulling resources out of the classroom or having them come after would be not necessarily what we want to have them involved more on the benefit side of it, and what are we going to use the funds for, and those type of things. But from the administrative side, I don't think it'd be too exciting, but it could be considered, but it hasn't been recommended.
Is this fixing the existing foundation or
It's going to be evaluating what's the best route. If the status of the current one is not in a manner that we can get back to a acceptable needs, then it might just be best to start from scratch. If not, we're going to try to utilize what we have already. But
is there a potential issue if we end up with two?
It just creates some confusion. Obviously, the names, who you're contributing to. We want it to be a joint thing. We think there's a good thing going already. We just want to build on it, and that's the whole idea of it. It's just whether if their tax filings are up to date and all those other things. Those are the things we need to look at and make sure everything's current. If everything's current and we can get the structure set up in an appropriate manner, then we can move forward with what we have. It's going to be a whole lot easier. But it could be that we have to go back and start from scratch. But we're optimistic and we want to utilize what we already have. A lot of work's already been put into it, and it's positive going forward. We just want to build on it, expand on the activities that are being provided. Right now there's only one gala. So let's look for trying to expand some opportunities there. We have a very generous community. We have a hot industrial market right now, and we feel it's a good time to really get out there and promote some positive things that we can utilize this fund for.
We should be able to raise quite a lot of money for the system by doing it that way, so that it's real clear that the money is deductible for them, and it benefits us and them.
I think also combining the activities, meaning you have representation representation from the district and representation from the foundation board, so that we know that we're all moving in the same direction. We don't want competing opponents that are going against each other. If we go out and a unified force, then it's going to create a whole lot better results.
We don't need two groups going to the same thing.
Right. Don't want to hit this well too many times.
I was given the impression of a personality issue with some people.
I think everyone's been on a positive, everyone wants to move in the same direction, and hopefully we get everybody, as far as all parties involved, obviously, making sure that we're all on the same page is going to be a huge thing, but I think everyone wants to move in the same direction.
But the basic function of this foundation is to provide scholarships for, should I say, students that want to become teachers, and they commit themselves to this, give a scholarship, but they come back and pay with 4 years of service.
That was the original program that the foundation set up, but it's not limited from that. We can actually do other things otherwise.
What can you do other than that?
Well, what they've also done is a grant program where teachers would apply for a grant for their classroom. They submitted, hey, we want to do this with our classroom. And then the foundation board, the current foundation board would review those requests and then provide grants. The foundation could donate money to the district to use towards pay if they would like. It's really up to the foundation as to what they want to utilize those funds for. Obviously, it has a whole lot more fundraising flexibility than what the school district does, so it can do more things than what we can do as a school district. It basically becomes our fundraising tool, a fundraising program for the district.
As I understand, my little common sense that I have is that we don't have enough in the budget to do those funds that would be raised.
It would provide supplemental to what we currently have. We're limited to what we can keep from the state, so our local and state revenues are limited. This would be outside of all funding formulas. Whatever we raise from the foundation stays in the foundation. We donate to the district without recapture from the state. So it provides an additional revenue source, basically allowing districts to take some local control back with their dollars. You know, we can, instead of collecting everything in the general fund in the manner we're currently collecting it, it allows the opportunity to fundraise and create some additional opportunities that would be retained 100% of the district.
That's not all said.
Well, I mean, considering how big this district is with fine arts, and this may be the answer to your prayer there, Jim, that people can donate to the foundation, and then that comes back to the fine arts.
I'm all for that. Do we have a motion?
And to get to that point, I'll support.
Got another question.
I have a question. Yes. Looking at the consultant's guidelines or outline, it looks like that, well, let me back up. How many officers is there in the current foundation?
Well, current, there's not a whole lot. Like I said, it hasn't been real active, so I think it dwindled down. And that's what we're trying to get, is something that's going to stand the test of time from a longevity standpoint. Obviously, people change, interests change, but if we can keep a consistent format and structure of the foundation is what something that seems to be going on a long-term basis.
But I mean, the outline looks pretty detailed. I don't know if everybody's had a chance to read it, but it goes to the management of the funds and the bylaws and the Constitution, and just goes on and on and on. Which is, I think that's really good for those who are given money, to realize that, hey, we have an arrangement, we have a structure that's going to look at all the details and make sure it's the best use, and I think there's maybe some IRS problems currently, so that's something that we need to take a look at and make sure. But it seemed like and to answer Joe's question, I think that the scholarship program was good, but when you couldn't get them a job, they kind of makes the scholarship kind of go away. So those are the difficulties that you have. So I think it can be a long range setup, and I'm just impressed with this outline for the 2 or 3 meetings that goes, and it's going to be, looks like it'll be a lot of work.
It is.
But
That's not
gets to the point. Yeah, that's true.
to assume that these guys have experience in doing this.
Yes.
And that's
Extensive.
Most times.
That was one of the impressive things. A lot of times you get folks, consultants coming in, they haven't had any, well, they've had experience, but it may not have been people you know. But these were a lot of area districts, Pearland, Alvin, let's see, Pasadena. Those are just ones off the top of my head, but there's a whole slew of area districts that I deal with on a routine basis and had a chance to talk to, and they had nothing but positive things to say about the setup and the manner in which it was handled in a professional way. And so that's always good. When you set things up, you want it to be good, you want it to be thorough. And I think just even for these initial documents, you're seeing that they are very thorough in what they're doing. It's well thought out, and this is what they do. I mean, so I don't want any hiccups down the road. Feel that this will provide us the security there to feel comfortable with what we've set up as an organization that'll stand the test of time.
Are there other consultants that do this type of work?
Not that I've seen, but I mean, there could be.
It's very specialized.
It seems to be. I mean, this was a slew of list of ones that were all our area. It was rather overwhelming that there wasn't somebody else involved in this as well. But
They work with other foundations and school districts?
they may. But what I've seen is their primary focus is school district.
What I like is the steering committee has, what, 12 items, 11 items, that it's laid out with. If you can get to those 11 items, you probably have a good program set up at that point. So it's pretty good.
It's very thorough.
I just want to say the scholarship program has been awesome for BISD, bringing students back and coming as teachers. A lot of them took that opportunity and we're benefiting from it. So, is there a motion to approve the formation of the BISD Education Foundation Steering Committee? Is there a second? Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by nay? Thank you, Mr. Shaker. Thank you. Motion carries. We're now to the report part of our program, and our first report is the TASB compensation maintenance report. Go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening. As requested by the Board of Trustees, TASB HR Services conducted an annual compensation maintenance review of BISD's compensation plan. Following tonight's presentation by TASB, the administration will evaluate TASB's analysis and provide the board with an administrative recommendation as part of an updated compensation plan in June. At this time, I would like to introduce Amy Campbell, who's TASB's Assistant Director of HR Services, to present the findings from the report.
Okay. So I was here last year and we talked at length about the last study that we did, which was very in-depth, and we got down to the individual salary recommendation level. This is a much bigger picture than that, so we won't take 2.5 hours. We will not. I hope not. That's not quite that long. Just to give you an overview of what we did this time around, since it is a little bit different, we'll talk a little bit about that. Talk about, of course, kind of what I call compensation 101. I'll translate my lingo for you, so we're all talking the same language. And talk about how you compare to the market, of course. Our recommendations and some general cost estimates. And of course, all that has to be folded into the budget, so this is just preliminary. So what we did, of course, was get all of your employee data and look at your salaries and how that relates to the market. If you'll remember, TASB does an annual survey of every district in the state, I think we're up to about 140 job titles. We also look at jobs that typically have stipends, like head band director, athletic director, ag teacher, those sorts of things, because we want to factor in total compensation where we can. And we compare not only individual salaries, but also pay ranges, because it's not only important to pay your employees appropriately to market, but also to offer market competitive pay rates to new incoming folks. We recommended some adjustments to your pay structure based on the general pay increases we're recommending, because you want to keep those two moving in tandem. And of course, model the cost for those salary increases. So here's my Comp 101. Pay systems, of course, should help you recruit employees. You need to offer competitive wages to get people to come to grad sport. But you also want to reward your current employees for their service and pay market competitive increases. which in your area, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, is tough because this year it seems like everyone has lots of money to spend for that. On the flip side, you do have to pay for job value, meaning we have to maintain fair and equitable pay for internal folks. And also, this is all driven by budget, so it's limited by what you can afford to spend. So I talk about market target, and I've got a literal target up there. It moves every year, and even throughout the year as people, as other districts provide increases, and as people move in and out of their positions. And so, of course, market target, what we're shooting for is the median value of all of your market responses. And so we're looking to kind of set your pay ranges at the middle value. But of course, individuals may fall above or below that based on their experience, their skill sets, and things like that. And so the ideal, of course, is to have your ranges in line with that market median, but you have some room within the range to pay people based on their experience and skills. And of course, we group those jobs together based on their value into pay grades, and then those pay grades are grouped within a structure. So the jobs within a structure all share some similarities, and jobs within a pay grade share the same value. So we looked at a large list of districts here, the same as last year. We've got 16 total area districts, ranging in size from as big as Pasadena to as small as, let's see, these are tiny, Sweeney. These are all districts from whom you draw employees and to whom you may lose employees. And so we want to, I guess, get a good picture of those districts that are most like you and closest in recruitment area. So in terms of teacher pay, we did a lot to bridge the gap last year. We're very close to market median value. At the starting salary, y'all were within $250 of that market median, so very competitive, right in there. We get a little closer even at the 5-year intake points, which I think most districts would say that's kind of their target market. That's really the teacher candidates that they're looking to poach from other districts, or that they would be happy to recruit. Someone who's got a few years of experience under their belt, where they can kind of hit the ground running and be ready to go from day one. We fall furthest behind at the 15 and 20-year points, and so that's a target area for future adjustments as well. But providing some strong general pay increases will do a lot to help bridge that gap too, because I think most districts are focusing on those target ranges, and so again, providing an across-the-board adjustment will help bridge that. For the maintenance, we don't look at all of 140 jobs. We look at a smaller subset that can be found in absolutely every district. Principals, principal secretaries, bus drivers, child nutrition workers, those kind of basic standard jobs. So looking at your admin professional jobs, which are all principals and assistant principals, you're within 7% of market value. So there's a little gap there. And I'll mention it a little bit, that's one of the areas that I've recommended some targeted adjustments to help bridge that gap. Your clerical paraprofessional, right in line, I'm missing a percent, 103% of market, so right a hair above market median, which is a good thing, because that group includes your teacher aides and some secretaries. Your auxiliary group, again, is a hair behind market, and the jobs that we looked at there are the largest incumbent numbers, like custodians, bus drivers, bus monitors, and we actually expand that to cafeteria managers too. So there's a group there with lots of people in it who are a little bit behind market. So we've recommended some adjustments to those folks too. So as I mentioned, Region 4 is being very aggressive this year. Each year, for the past, I think, 4 years now, PASB HR Services has done a pay increase poll where we poll districts in April asking what they think they're going to get for an increase the next year. Because while we can look at the current market, we also have to look into our crystal ball for what districts are going to do next year. So we asked them in April, hey, tell us what you think you're going to get for an increase. This year, the statewide market movement we saw was about 2.3%. However, Region 4 is about 0.3% higher than that, so 2.6% on average. The near majority of those districts that responded, 44%, are doing a 3% increase, which is a lot stronger than what we're seeing in other areas of the state. Almost a quarter are doing a 2% increase, and then the remainder are spread everywhere from 1% all the way up to 5%. I know a lot of the Houston area districts have already come out, which I'm sure y'all have seen in the paper, have already come out with that strong $50,000 starting salary. I would say that in some cases that is to the detriment of the more experienced teachers. They're coming out to compete really strong at the starting salary. maybe not doing as much for those folks with more years of experience. So that's a good opportunity to help bridge that gap at the 15 to 20 year point too. So our initial plan, or Model 1, is a 3% general pay increase. That would increase the teacher starting salary to $47,750. It's not quite at that $50,000 that the urban Houston districts are doing, which all offer a different work environment, and so you probably don't have to get right up there with them. You do want to be in the ballpark, and that's usually what we stress, is to at least try to get up there in the ballpark with them. That would be a pay increase of $15.50 per teacher, and then 3% of midpoint for the other groups. And in addition to that, as I mentioned, I've recommended some targeted adjustments for principals, bus drivers, bus monitors, custodians, and child nutrition workers and managers. And so that adds another 2% of midpoint for those folks. Model 2 is a little stronger, my preferred model. Of course, it costs more money though. And we would increase the teacher starting salary to $48,250, so get even closer to that $50,000 milestone. And that would be an increase of $2,050 per continuing teacher for next year. And then all other employees would get an increase of 4% of midpoint. And we would continue those targeted adjustments to fix your market issues. And then there are a handful of people, I want to say there's only 5 or 6, who are below the proposed minimum, and so we give them an extra bump just to get into the pay range. And so that represents actually 0% of the total cost. It's a real tiny number. So here's the overall picture for cost model 1. So overall, that represents a $1.9 million total cost for those general pay increases. It's 3.1% budget increase. If we add in those targeted adjustments, which are not shown here, that's another 0.1%. So it's $100,000 total for that. It represents a very tiny amount. So we get to about $2 million total. The Model 4 or Model 2, the 4% pay increase, is a $2.6 million total cost. So that again, the number increases. And we would add in still about $100,000 for those targeted adjustments, so we get to $2.7 million. And again, that represents 0.1%, the targeted adjustments in terms of budget increase. And the overall budget increase there would be 4.1%. So it would end up about the same number as the general pay increase number. Talk real fast. Did y'all have any questions, any information I can provide that wasn't?
You did indicate that the across the board raise would better align the 15 to 20 to 25-year teachers. Does it get us up to close to the 100%?
It would not bridge that entire gap because, looking at, let's say the 20-year teachers are 4% below that market median. Now, let's assume if a Houston area district gives a 3%, those teachers may, that point in the range may move only 2%. So you're going to inch up a little closer, but that's not going to bridge the total gap. Because that would be not only a $21.60 increase for a teacher to get to current market, but also to keep moving with the next year's.
I think that's one of the things that I put in my budget and talked about last year is the fact that, yes, we have to be competitive with the 0-year ones, so to speak. But after 10 years, if a teacher's still with us moving forward, they seem to take a step backwards. I think we should correct that. And hopefully we could correct that and still have a slight increase for the starting salaries because I guess whatever you decide there and all these PD their aim is 50,000. I guess it's a nice round number. Okay, there's 50,000 we can come start with. So, but yeah, I would like to see that adjustment first, and then hopefully we could bring along, the 0-year was also for this increase, possibly the increase, under the 3% and offset the 4% for everybody else, but also be able to increase the 12 to 13 to 25 years or plus. That's possible. So that's my aim.
And last year we raised starting pay 7.5%. Most teachers got 2.1, but then now our teachers have a lot of experience are way below. So it's because we were early to do it and everyone else raised more.
Partially that, but also partially because we focus the money in that target range, the 5 to 15-year kind of group, and so that's why you're so competitive at that point and less competitive at the more experienced areas. So So that's a good, I mean, a lot of districts do that as kind of phase 2 of that process, and so they focus in the recruiting zone, if you will, and then they'll come back in a subsequent year and improve those more experienced teachers.
Having been a teacher.
Yeah.
What's wrong with having every step and saying we want to be 20% above the median at every step?
You certainly can do that.
So
It's
just giving it
expensive.
3 or, you know.
The problem with the teacher pay structures is that it's a domino effect, and so, you know, if you improve an early year, you're gonna squish the year, you create some compression between those subsequent years. And we sort of stopped the dominoes about year 15 to avoid additional costs that was not available last year.
You can see why Jim's,
I just want
he's leaving the board.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna like
We
the teacher
spend all the
because we
money.
get the pay raise. But it's like if it's the bottom teachers are making this, the top, and we get 2%, then it gets wider and wider if we don't address each step, you know, keep it competitive. That's why.
Right. And the 2% or 3% or whatever number we attach, every teacher gets the same dollar amount. So in theory, they all move in lockstep. So it's 2% of the market value or 4% of the market value. That's where those teacher pay increase numbers come from. So it's not an actual salary. It's specifically, we do that specifically to avoid that problem that you mentioned, because we don't want to spread them out even further. That is an option if that's the board's desire. We can certainly look at targeted adjustments for those.
Cool. And another question?
Yeah.
Have you been a bus driver too? Can I ask you what the bus driver, what we're looking at for our bus drivers?
It's in here.
I missed that.
I think we really need that foundation, we'll try to get 20% of those.
Right.
It's in here about the bus driver.
That's a whole lot of cookie dough.
Yeah, the market rate for bus drivers is $15 an hour, and so and right now you're $14.96, and right now you're at $13.72. So our improvement would be a 3 or 4% general pay increase plus an extra 2% for them. So they get a hefty bump.
So you're a very popular person. You throw around visit school.
Sometimes.
That's true too.
That's a good question.
Don't talk.
And I think, I'm agreeing with you, Jerry, in this, that, when I looked at this last year and I look at it again today, I certainly believe that a teacher with 5 years' experience ought to get a little more bump, and then at 10, and then at 15, and at 20, because it seems that's the way it's structured. Actually, you're paying the teachers that are coming in more salary to entice them to come in. And once you have them in, it doesn't seem to me that we are taking into consideration the time, the loyalty, the fact that they're here, the fact that they made a decision to start their career here. And if I'm saying the same thing, I think that you said it, Jerry, and I don't want to put words in your mouth. I think that certainly at 5, 10, 15, 20, if they live to be 30 years, you know. That's what I want to see.
Yeah, and that's a great point. And, you know, with the teacher structures, I think the way that they're depicted statewide is kind of misleading because it leads you to believe that you move down the steps. But in reality, it's rebuilt every year. And so, you know, you can recreate a new structure each year. And so really that's a placement structure for 14, 15, and that's the only time it would be used. And so ideally, you want to value all of your teachers. You value their service each year equally. And so you differentiate them when they come to the district based on their years of experience. But once they're here and they put in their year of hard work, you grant the same increase to each of them. Does that make sense?
Sure, because if when I look at your model, 2014-15, the difference between no experience and 10 years experience is $3,000. And I don't think that's fair.
Oh, I agree.
That's hiring schedule, right? This
Right.
is not
That's not the pay increase. That is what your current teachers will make. But the idea is that the differentiation comes when they arrive at the district, and then we're all on the same boat. We're all working for the same purpose, and so we get the same increase. But I agree with you. That's the kind of negative about teacher pay scales in Texas is that we over the past 10 years or so we've rushed so hard to improve the starting salary to the detriment of the 5 or 10-year teachers because we've just squished them all together. And so that's part of what we did last year was try to spread them out a little bit. But you don't want to lower your starting salary, and so we end up spreading and squishing
further and further into the structure.
But we as a district, Reservoir Independent School District, don't have to follow the lockstep, but it has to be recommended.
Oh, of course not. Oh.
In this community, I think is that opinion.
Okay.
Dan, this is the first you've seen this?
I saw it Friday.
Okay, so you haven't had a chance to run this through and see what the impact is?
Well, we do have the calculations and we've dropped it into but we have to actually drop it into our system to verify. But no, we have not been able to verify it yet. No.
And then kind of the same from an HR perspective, I mean, does this give you what you need for recruiting?
Yeah, it gives us options, absolutely.
Okay. No, well, does it give you what you need?
Yes.
It's a little bit different. I mean, if we're gonna really try to improve things, then we have to really have a good recruiting program. And so we've got to give you what you need to go get the job done. You can come up with a bunch of options, those options still may not give you what you need. A little bit of a distinction, right? I want to make sure you have what you need.
One of the things I think is important to take note of with this is, just like we did last year, we took the TASB recommendations and we evaluated them as a part of our total compensation plan, because there's other items that we have to consider in regards to the compensation as well, related to like subpay, stipends, things of that nature. So there are other pieces to it, and so basically, with this presentation, this is the initial piece of information, and then our HR department and finance department will take this information, analyze it, twist it, turn it, she'll get 10 calls, all those kinds of things, and really identify really what we would recommend as a part of our compensation package and give you guys some options. We can do it this way with, this is a salary increase, this is the, sub-pay increase, this is staffing increases, or we can do it this way and only do this. And so we'll give you some options, and that comes in the June meeting. Am I correct?
Yeah. Can we, I'm thinking out loud, which sometimes can get me in trouble. When we do come up with our recommendations and options, is there a way that we can maybe pull together a small sub-team or subcommittee from the rank and file principals, maybe teachers, to kind of run that by them and kind of get their input? I know it's an HR-related issue, but one of the things that I think we need to try to improve is when we try to do things with the best of intentions, sometimes there's those unforeseen consequences that kind of blow up in our face. Case in point, I mean, we gave the longevity stipends at 5, 10, 15. Well, we made 1/5 of the teachers happy, and in the process pissed off the other 4/5. So, so I don't know if there's a way to maybe run that by us and select the people for input, just to make sure we got all the bases covered before it becomes a recommendation to come to the board. Just a thought, just something to consider.
Definitely consider that.
Yeah.
So that's just a report. And I just want to say thanks for making this report. And last year, big adjustment for us. And as a teacher, I would be glad to know that our school district is doing this study every year. And I hope we continue this, even if I'm not here, that we see you every year. That'd be awesome.
I would love to come back. I look at it as informing y'all what's going on in the marketplace, so you don't have to make those decisions in a vacuum. And so
Exactly.
regardless what y'all decide, you've got information to work with.
And we can be more competitive and retaining great teachers. So thank you very much for today's hearing.
Sometimes we like to be in the vacuum. That's where we're the smartest.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
I think this booklet is excellent, man.
Our next report is Staff Campus Climate Survey Report.
Good evening. I would like to introduce a couple of representatives from K-12 Insight. Sarah Underline is going to present the staff climate survey findings, and Tony Restorio is going to help with the questions.
Welcome. Appreciate you being
Good
here.
evening. It's a pleasure to be here. So, as this is from K-12 Insight, this is the company And what that means in our view is engaging all stakeholders, community members, teachers, students, parents, everyone who is a part of this conversation. Through a lot of that information, what we came up with was a plan for the year that included the things that you see here, such as focus groups with staff, which occurred in November. Those informed a climate survey, which the results of which you're going to see today, of staff. The next step in that was to look at the same sort of aspects of climate with students. And then following from that, we are digging deeper into the results from the student survey with focus groups of students tomorrow. And also putting together a survey of the community. The community will include several aspects of school climate of parents as well, to get at a 360 type of view of various areas of school climate. So a little bit on the focus groups. As I said, they did inform the survey that we are going to see the results from today. We met with staff in November. 35 staff members participated in those focus groups, which lasted about an hour and a half each. Some findings from those were that teachers voiced a desire to be included in conversations around strategic vision and strategic direction. They saw, and you'll see some of this today, some issues with communication in terms of transparency and different methods in which the group were to be communicated with. And for the most part, the leaders said the district were supportive of building administrators, and many participants took pride in the work that they did in this district, and they indicated support for the district efforts and the superintendent's goals for improving student achievement. So the staff survey, as I said, was built on those conversations with staff, but also a collaborative meeting, which is a process that our company engages in with every school district we work in to try and increase content validity of our surveys. So we don't take a survey off the shelf and administer it. We go through many conversations with people in the district in order to understand what the important questions are to ask specific to the context in which we're working. From those conversations, we came up with topics that you see listed here, such as academic preparation, particular to the curriculum here, student support, curriculum support and implementation, professional development, safety and behavior, communication, parent engagement, school leadership, faculty relations, school operations, and program quality. The survey has been closed for a couple months now. It was at the end of February through March. And all faculty and staff were invited to participate via their email invitation. Participation itself was excellent. About 80% of all the staff who were invited to participate did participate. And one of the main things that we ask is an overall perception of the education quality of their school. And what you can see here is that the majority of staff, 67%, gave their campus an A or a B letter grade. We next asked them a series of questions related to those dimensions that I mentioned earlier, the first of which being academic preparation. And across the board, and I'll just go through this slide in more detail than the other slides, because they look pretty much the same. Across the board, the results are very positive. Staff had very favorable views of their school in the variety of different dimensions that we asked about. In this particular dimension, which is academic preparation, some items within that were how much they agree or disagree with all teachers at this school help students meet challenging academic goals. Also, another item in there was teachers at this school give timely and helpful feedback on student work. So overall, across all of the participants, we had about an 81% agreement rate for academic preparation. Elementary school teachers tend to be slightly more favorable than their counterparts in middle school, who are also slightly more favorable than counterparts in high school. That trend continues in a variety of different ways. Here's curriculum support implementation. Overall, there was about a 76% agreement rate with the items in here. Here you see the middle school teachers actually providing the most favorable opinion about curriculum support and implementation. When asked about student support, which is resources and support provided for students in a variety of ways besides academics as well as behavioral supports. Same trend we saw as with academic preparation. Overall, about 87% agreement most favorable then, of the three groups.
It's because kids are harder to get along with.
They are, that's true. School leadership, same trend. About a little over 80% provided a favorable view of the school leader. Elementary school providing the most favorable view, down to middle and high. Faculty relations. Here we had an 86% agreement rate across the items related to faculty relations, and similar trend. Elementary providing the most favorable view, followed by middle and high. Parent engagement, this was actually our most favorable dimension across the entire survey. Staff were very favorable when it came to asking about how parents are involved and engaged within individual campuses. Overall, it was 90% agreement, and then a similar trend, elementary being the highest, followed by the others. Within safety and behavior, 78%, again, provided a favorable opinion of safety and behavior in the schools. Same trend, elementary being highest. They did fall a little bit more significantly higher than the middle and high school counterparts, but again, the majority of teachers provided a very favorable view of safety and behavior in school. School operations, this is asking about instructional materials, the maintenance of the building, food, those sorts of aspects of campus life. Again, an overall highly favorable result, 76% agreement. Elementary and middle, pretty much equal here in terms of the favorability, followed by high school. And the second thing I wanted to talk with you all about is we asked about a lot of effectiveness of communication methods, specifically because the focus groups brought up the fact that there were different ways that they were communicated with, some being more effective than other, and their requests for more transparency. So the most effective methods for communicating with staff are what you see here. Email being the most effective, their Google Drive, school messenger, information from the principals, text messages, BConnect internal website, district website, and the employee service center. On the other hand, the least effective communications from their view were the Be Informed informational sessions, campus visits, superintendent's blog, topical frequently asked questions, employee suggestion box, just ask button, and the weekly technology update.
Is that surprising to you?
I think that it depends on how they're most often communicated with. There are some things that are going to be effective because that's what they get on a regular basis and they're used to using those. There are some that are going to be rated least effective because it's less familiarity.
Change.
Can I ask one more question?
Yes, sure.
Take care of it. Does the number of, different number, the wide variety of least effective goes from like 232 up to 600? Does that mean they're not familiar with it, or they just don't use it, or?
Exactly.
I mean, I didn't look at that jumped out at me. The most effective was pretty high up in the numbers. And this one seems to be jumped around quite a bit.
Exactly. So the people, or the staff, I should say, who responded to how effective these things were ones who previously indicated that they used that method. So if you see 232 were asked about how effective Just Ask is, that means that 232 teachers of the full group said that they actually used it. So the third piece here, program quality. We also asked staff to rate how they felt about secondary and elementary programs. So there's a lot on this slide, and I know it's very hard to read, but I wanted to put it all here just so you could see how effective they thought some of these programs were. At the very top, the most effective or excellent, very good ratings were given to extracurricular activities in secondary level, fine arts, music, art, and theater, and physical education and athletics. The least effective at the bottom were ESL services and gifted and talented services and guidance and counseling. At the elementary level, the most effective, or the most highly rated programs, I should say, were physical education and fine arts at the top, similar to secondary. Also up there were student support services such as guidance, counseling, and health. At the bottom, we had interventions and student intervention services such as RTI, response intervention, and other special education services. So in conclusion, we feel that we successfully engaged a majority of your staff in a conversation or dialogue around school climate. We felt that from the results, we think that the staff is very satisfied with the climate in the individual campuses. Areas of support that came out were related to some of those dimensions: student support, faculty relations, and particularly parent involvement, parent engagement. Some challenges we found, again, in school communications, some of the questions already brought up. How effectively are they using everything, and how familiar are they with those communications? Implementation of new curriculum at the middle school level that came out, and diversity of course offerings. So we, as I mentioned earlier, are going to continue to have these types of conversations with various stakeholders, specifically tomorrow, starting with the high schoolers and focus groups. And what I wanted to provide to you is just a little insight into what we're talking with the high schoolers about tomorrow, because it all is part of the same conversation. We're going to ask them about different ways that they engage in learning in the classroom and their preferred method for learning new information, such as working in pairs or working in groups and doing projects, the degree of engagement they feel in terms of learning, and also their perceptions around safety in the school building and student behavior, because we do see differences in elementary, middle, and high, so we want to keep digging deeper into that aspect. We're also working and have finalized today actually a community survey that will go out to the entire community that asks about things at district level, such as goals of the district, priorities of the district, the mission statement, and it will also ask of parents to rate things such as communication, program quality, their involvement in the schools, and those aspects of climate as well. Thank you.
That's a very good question. Will we get to see the raw data, or is it on the compiled? I'm thinking of those surveys, be a stack of paper, I imagine. Can we look through those and move on to it?
So the information that was presented tonight has been given to you as a handout. We also have a full PowerPoint or full report that has all of the individual items on it that will be.
That's not what I meant. Will we be able to look at individual surveys?
We don't provide that because, yeah, well, no, that's a good question, because we ensure confidentiality of the data, and so that the individual information is kept secure with us, and then what we provide is aggregate information.
Well, this focus groups, I don't know if everything's already set and cannot be changed, but I'd be kind of interested to know if the kids feel like they're getting a good quality education. Do they feel that they're being adequately prepared for the next level? I think that would be a very important question to ask. Is, we're here to educate them, and so do they feel they're getting what they need?
Yeah, and that to answer that, we are asking that in tomorrow's focus group. We're asking them how you prefer to learn, but also how you feel that this learning method will affect you later in life.
I have a question.
Is that based on new learning, new styles, or existing? I mean, I'm really getting, there's multiple ways to skin a cat. Are they getting the education? I mean, do they feel like they're being prepared, or do they feel like their time is being wasted, that, they're not getting anything out of it, that they want more and they're not getting it? Not necessarily the method that is being delivered, but just the overall quality of whatever the delivery is.
Yeah, I think what, and we only have 15 minutes, which the high school group, so we can't get into a lot of it, but we will be asking them about the general feeling of educational quality in the school, similar to what we did with the teachers, where we have them give a letter grade. That will be a discussion with the students tomorrow.
Okay.
Yep.
I have a question on chart 6, where it says that the overall majority of the staff rated the campus with an A or a B. Were you aware of that 11 out of 19 schools were rated below average by the state?
In terms of a letter grade system, well, I think that it's a different, yeah, I mean, it's the same letter scale.
This chart shocks me.
Yeah.
It shocks me in the face of what the state has told us, that our level of schools are not performing.
I think it's a different metric. I can't speak to the validity of that metric. I think that they're looking at different things. I think when you're asked the teachers, what we did is perceptions of their school. Their perceptions of their school say something differently than what another metric might.
If you ask the teacher, are my students making passing grades?
That would be a different question.
And would you ask that question?
I don't think we would need to ask that question because you have that data. This survey was designed to get at their perceptions rather than the hard data that you already have collected.
I mean, we already have the data that was sent to the state.
Correct.
Just clarification, if I could, that report you're referring to is a third-party report. It's not from the state. That's a third-party report that's in the Chronicle.
No, there's a state law that says we have to send in grades to the Commissioner of Education
Yeah,
every
but
year.
you were asking about the grades. Are you referring to the Chronicle report?
No, he's referring to
So what are you referring to?
There's a state law that says that the grades of each individual student has to be given to the State Commissioner of Education by sex, ethnicity, and socioeconomic status.
You have to help me on this one because I'm confused.
Well, it's a different topic than we're talking about tonight.
Yeah, I'm
Maybe we can
guessing
move
that
on.
would be our PEMS report, but, that's.
Since we have two people here to answer questions about this report, could we just leave it to this report? That'd be really good. Any other questions?
Yeah, I had a question on, what was it? Write it down, I'm sorry. So I guess I asked this question in my Mr. Damian's question at the TEA, is that the students that you're going to talk to are the focus groups. Is that going to be a cross-section of each school? Are you at both high schools or? Okay.
Sure. Yep.
Is that a cross-section of the students?
It is. We asked principals to identify 20 students from 5 from each grade level at the 2 high schools. So we'll be conducting focus groups with 20 students at each high school. Each will last about a period, about 55 minutes to an hour.
I'm going to follow up on George's question. He's asking if the students are feeling as if they are being prepared for the next level. Correct. I guess my question is there any, in y'all's process, is there any, let me change it. What I want to know is the students who are already out of school, who graduated last year or 2 years ago, are they ever, I mean, is there any way of tracking them to find out, hey, do you feel like you were prepared when you left? I mean, it's not quite the same as, are you feeling prepared, but to actually get out to the real world, do you feel like you were prepared? I guess that's the question I'm really more interested in.
Yeah, and I think that, this type of a study looking at school climate is with the participants within the school today, which is different from the alumni population once they are out in the workforce or out in college. That's another group that we would like to tap into to try and answer that question. But speaking to the community survey that will be coming out, I'm sure that there are going to be plenty of alumni in the community that hopefully will take part in that survey.
But I think we're talking about two different surveys, two different instruments to make that, because one, you want to focus on the quality of the education from the student's point of view. One in the community, I think, really need to understand what's the parents' perception of their school system with the kids that are currently in the school system. So to me, those are very diverse questionnaires to get a completely different perspectives of our district.
I think based on the student survey and knowing what questions were in the student survey, I think we'll get that. But it's going to take, what they do is they'll combine the student survey with the focus group information to get a comprehensive analysis. So I think you'll get that with some of the questions plus follow up with the focus group, because some of the questions geared almost directly towards that on the survey.
Any other questions? And thank you for this report. It's very interesting, so I look forward to the future results. Thank you for coming tonight. Appreciate it. Our next report is ad valorem tax collections.
Ad valorem
we have Mike Garlow here with Purdue Brandon. In accordance with board policy CCG, and strategic objectives to provide timely and accurate financial information to stakeholders. He's here to talk about our tax collections and what a great supporting community we have. 99+% are paid every year, actually probably over 100, so from the delinquents. But anyway, Mike's here to present this information.
Welcome again. Thank you. Appreciate you being here. Thank you all for having me. Appreciate it.
Dan was looking for it.
There we go.
Go to the end.
Go to the end. We'll be quick. I appreciate the opportunity to visit with you all and give you a quick update. As Dan said, you all get a fantastic collection from the tax office. Before we start, every July, you collected almost 99% of your levy. So a year ago, when we got to 2012, you collected 79 million, almost 78 million of it was collected. So we just deal with the last 1 to 2% of your total levy. We send letters, we make phone calls, we have to file suits, occasionally we have to file property for tax sale. We offer all those services, and on our website, for some of you that may sign up and get our tax sale notices, we have tax sales almost every month. This past, earlier this month, we had our May sales. We had about 14 properties, several of which were within the boundaries of the district, and happily the majority of them paid before the sale. There was a few that we had put up for sale that sold. As you all know, real estate is, people are very interested in any real estate in the county right now. And we have people calling us all the time asking if we have large tracts of land available for tax sales because they want to come down and buy it and develop. So from a market standpoint, that's always a good thing. From your perspective, of course, we're not really looking to sell property. We just want people to pay their property taxes. We prefer that they pay voluntarily, and we give them payment agreements, opportunities to pay, and when they don't, we take the next appropriate step. I think it's interesting for you to note that of the money that's due, if you look at the first chart that you have there, the $1.19 million of base taxes due through 2012, 300,000 of that involves one account, one taxpayer, one big old nasty lawsuit that we have going on right now involving some refrigerated containers out at the port. This case is sort of in its infancy in the sense that we've had a few hearings. We won an argument the other day in court, and they're appealing now to the Court of Appeals on an interlocutory basis over whether or not the property should have been exempt or not, even though the property owner rendered their property with the appraisal district and said, this is how many containers you have, this is how much it's worth. Now they're sort of trying to backtrack and say, no, it shouldn't be that. We really didn't mean to render it. It's really not taxable. And in fact, for 2013, it's not taxable. But for 2011 and 2012, it was. And as I told them in court, all my clients base their budgets based on the values that they get from the appraisal district, and they set their tax rates based on that. And while y'all may have made that mistake not only once but twice, we can't just say, oh well, that's okay, we'll walk away and not worry about it. So that's the big exciting news, to the extent you can have any excitement in tax collection that we're working on for you. Now, the other column I'll just point out for you is the green column, the deferrals. As you know, if you're over 65 and the property is your homestead, you're entitled by law to defer the payment of those taxes, meaning that you don't get letters from us, we don't call you, we don't sue you, we in essence leave you alone. We do, however, check those records a couple times a year to find out if something's changed, if somebody passes away. We get all the local papers, Bradford Facts, we get some of the other local papers. Believe it or not, we read the obituaries on a regular basis to find out if people have passed. It's the easiest way to know if they own property. And this is the thorough job we do for you, because you'll find that family members don't necessarily understand that when mom or dad passed away, they hadn't been paying the taxes,
and they get this bill in the mail. And it's quite large usually if you've deferred your taxes many years ago and you live a long time, it can be a really large bill. And so we try to bring it to their attention when we learn about it, that, hey, there's something you need to do. So you'll note you've only got 11% of the outstanding taxes in deferral, and that's a good thing. Moving on, let's see. This dollar range chart just gives you an idea of the money that's owed. Where are the monies that owed, so that when we're doing our collection efforts, we focus on the largest portions. You can see that we have between $500 and $2,500 of base tax. We've got 31% of the roll. So when we're trying to put our program into place, we're making sure that not only the accounts that are in this middle spot, as well as the large accounts, but also the small accounts are collected. So we cut across the roll. And what this does is it helps our collectors make sure that we're reaching out to everybody. One of the things we try not to get accused of is that we only look to the big accounts. We never deal with the small accounts. And of course, when we send out our mass mailings, the big accounts aren't the ones that call us, it's the small ones that always call and say, I lost that mobile home in a hurricane or in a fire, or I sold it. And so we're dealing with people and trying to resolve their problems. And this is just a tool to help us make sure that we're catching all the accounts in the district. And the last pie chart I have for you just breaks it down by dollar range. You can see that we've got 56% of the roll between 11 and 12, and of that almost $700,000, 300 of it is that lawsuit that I mentioned to you earlier. Finally, not to bore you, these are all historical collections for 06 forward. The basic concept is every July is when we start collecting for you. And what do we do in the first 12-month cycle, and then in each 12-month cycle for that particular tax year moving forward. And so looking at the 06 year, you can see that we're almost finished with our 7th year. We started with 1.16 million of base, and almost 96% of that's been collected or resolved over a 7-year cycle. And then if we just move all the way forward to 2011, and if you have questions on any of the other years, of course, I'm happy to go back to that. But if I just move you forward to the 2011 year, you'll see that we had $1 million. So it's gone down over the last several years. Again, you're getting more value, getting more base tax with your growth. The delinquent taxes are staying level or going down, so it's not becoming an increasing issue for you. And through April of this year, we've got almost 75% of it. And then the year we're concluding right now, the last information I have for you, you'll see that we went down to 900,000, so almost 100,000 less than the year before. And through April of this year, we're a little over 58% of that is collected. So we're on track again to exceed 60% in the first year. Things are going well. I'd be happy to answer any questions on anything that we're doing on behalf of the district. Questions?
You get a copy of that, I see those handouts you got.
Yes. You need an extra copy?
I just need one.
I'll give you mine, except I put notes on it.
No, don't worry about it.
It's on our board book too, so we can find it.
Sharon.
Okay. Any questions? And this is always a very impressive report. Thank you for what you do, and you made it a very exciting report too tonight, so thank you for that.
Thank you all very much.
Thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Our next report is a TEA site visit overview. Dr. McCoy Jackson.
See, I'm keeping my choice spot last. Good evening. It's my pleasure to provide the board with an overview of the TEA Far Site visit that took place April the 14th, 2014, in accordance with board policy, BQ local, and strategic objectives, teaching and learning. Each student will be equipped to achieve the highest level of success in all curricular areas. Okay, why BISD? I ask myself that often. But if you look at this slide, why did we have to have a PAR access review? The following federal program areas were targeted for the audit. So if you look at special ed, CTE, bilingual, ESL. After a significant number of years prior to 2011-2012 school year, there was inconsistent performance, data collection errors, and access to facilities for community members and for some of our students, and limited numbers of enrollment in CTE for special ed and OEP students. So, what this means is that triggered or initiated a visit from TEA. So, what were they looking for? As you can see, we have three little points. 3 items look really simple, right? Not so much. So, they were looking for effective programs, services that where we did not discriminate against for race, color. They looked at equal access for our facilities and making sure that the teachers understood language and culture could pose a problem if instruction is not modified. But the PAR review with the TEA coming down, that required many, many hours of planning. So the preparation of the planning, we created a planning committee, and here's your planning committee, here's your planning committee, here's your planning committee. So it was an all-out effort for all departments. We created 2 websites. One where we loaded all of our information to make sure that everything was checked and rechecked, and then we created another website that only auditors could access. So all of the information was that, and that took a lot of time. We also looked at the analysis of data and tried to really think through what they wanted to look at. They gave us some information, but we tried to think through it. We did many audits. We did a lot of things with our campuses. We did preparation reviews and looked at the audit criteria to make sure that our principals had principals meetings talking to their staff. We also did school visits prior to the auditors coming to make sure that everything looked good for them. We assisted the auditors as they reviewed the data, district data, follow-up meetings with auditors to answer questions that they may have. We did reports and discussions. In other words, we were discussing processes for identifying strategies to improve what we are doing or what we need to do. We looked at all student data to try to make sure that what they were looking for in those areas, that our data was on par, and it was. Now we're in the phase of action planning. That means that we have to start preparing for the findings when they are given, and making sure that that action plan basically is a driving force, that is motivating, is a motivating force where we can maintain the motivation to keep following through, to keep staying with the course. And I'm sure you've heard that term quite a bit. The strengths and areas of improvement. Now, there were several areas that the auditors targeted that needed improvement, but they also shined a light on some of the wonderful things that we are doing in the district. They said that we were brave to have a curriculum audit, to conduct a curriculum audit. Why? Because when you conduct a curriculum audit, you have to follow through with making sure that all of those things that you see are dealt with. They really looked at our initiatives. In fact, one of the auditors, Ann Early, she had this long white sheet of paper that she had taped together that had all of our initiatives. She said it was clear from our website that we had strong initiatives. The classroom instruction at work, 5E, balanced literacy. She was very impressed with what we are doing. She said our leadership team was strong, and that includes the board. with a very strong leadership team. And we're very transparent. We are good stewards with taxpayers' money. In other words, our buildings are quite old, but we are keeping them going. They die and we fix them and prop them back up. So they were really, when they found out how old our buildings were, they were quite surprised because they don't look the age that they really are. So
That's like some of us.
I'm not taking that, so I'm not gonna take it. Also, with those brave and wonderful things that they said about us, we also had some areas that we have to improve. Because if you're gonna have an audit, we all know, they're not gonna tell you all good news. So, we're looking at our programming for ESL. We're gonna have to look and adjust. Our caseload for our ESL teachers, we're looking at that now and identifying ways to provide support. Our Spanish-speaking parents, we need to be aware, and if you noticed our website, there's a little button now, and it's in Spanish or French or anything that you want. So we're really excited about that because we want our parents to feel welcome. We're looking at our current ESL model, making sure that it is supported, and if not, we will update. We need to provide a strong Tier 1 foundation in the classroom with our students, and we are looking at how we can do that. And we're making sure that the numbers of students that are in special ed, ELL students, participate in our wonderful CTE courses. The big word, or the buzzword, was stay the course. That was repeated over and over more than once. So that's our fight song now. Stay the course, stay the course, stay the course. As you can see, these are the recommendations. We're already looking at those. We're already in the process of making sure that we have critical elements in place to provide equal access in all of these programs. But we wanted to really make sure that our action steps were in place before the report is provided. So if you look at our chart, you can see these are some of the things that we've already completed. And I won't bore you with reading them to you because I don't want to put you to sleep. But what I am excited about is that if you look at HR, full statement and application system regarding non-discrimination, that was a huge thing, and they got it done before our auditors left our district. We also have a communications plan because we want to be able to communicate what we're doing, not only to our board, but also to teachers and other departments, principals. We want to provide the board with updates. Another update. I know you guys are really excited about that. But we will keep you updated, and we're looking at that. Also, the special ed department has worked, special services has worked very hard to look at department guidelines and to amend those when needed. Next steps. If you look at our next steps, you can see that we are working on our RTI planning because that's a must. We're looking at reorganization if necessary for our district departments to make sure that we have the right personnel in the right places to support. Interior audits. In other words, we are doing program evaluations. We're looking at what we need before we need it. We're looking at focus groups. Thank you. So we're on the same page. Long-range facilities planning. That's a part of it. We've already started that, so I'm excited about that. And the board, thank you so much for approving the TEACS resource system. We've done that. Then in August 2014, we will have all phase in and we'll start working to align the curriculum. And that's a huge, huge piece. Cindy J. Harris believes the whole purpose of education is to turn mirrors into windows. I am happy to answer any questions that you may have. Yes, sir?
I thought I heard the last time that we had the curriculum aligned already.
We haven't phased in the B Wood feeder pattern.
Any other questions?
Yeah, just, is this gonna be, you mentioned the board update or the quarterly updates, I mean, is this gonna be, what's the timetable for having these items?
Well, we have the communication plan already completed of how we're gonna address communication. We also have what we're completing from the recommendations from the auditors. We've already started adding information, which was the chart. And we can't do more than that until we get the final report. And we haven't gotten that yet, haven't received it.
Now I have a question that reminded me. Thank you. I understood that the auditor said that they were gonna have a temporary report within 6 months. It might take 6 months and the final report might take a year.
I don't recall that. I recall them having a final meeting, debriefing meeting with us to give us some information so we could start working ahead of time. They didn't give an actual date of when. It could be a month, it could be 2 months, it just depends. They said that they were kind of back ordered, so to speak, because they've done a lot of audits.
5 to 6 months before we see it.
Yeah, typically, they said typically it's 5 to 6 months. And they said it can be earlier, but based on the layoffs at TA, I'm doubting it.
What may have been confusing is that, I think we may have said that the actual auditor's report could be ready in 3 or 4 weeks. You know, then put it together, but you have to wait till all the TEA hierarchy goes through and approves it, et cetera. And it can take up to 5 or 6 months. And then we have, the district has a period of time to respond, and then the final report. But that should be like within another month, I think, is what they talk about.
Is this something that can be rolled into the current district improvement plan, or is it something that we actually could be rolled into it? And we'll be able to identify which ones fell within the previous and which ones now TEA, they'll be able to identify or to separate them. That saves us from having that report.
George, I wish you would have come.
You don't, well, I have this choice spot, so I'm thinking that everybody would want to be here for this.
Any other questions? Thank you for tonight's report, appreciate it very much. At this time, we'll have our committee reports. Board committee reports provide our trustees an opportunity to briefly share information gained from district committee meetings they attended over the past month. Are there any committee meetings, board members would like to report on this evening?
I don't have any committee, but I will say I've had the opportunity to visit 3 campuses in the last 2 or 3 weeks, and I thoroughly enjoyed those visits. There's a lot of excitement, there's a lot of people trying to do a lot of good things, and you can feel the enthusiasm. The most recent one was Nay. That school has so much charm and character, and the teachers there they are a complete cast of characters. Nay's a great school, regardless of what the score may say, it's a great school. And in fact, one of the teachers there, and I'm going to take her up on it, or I'll work through it and Karen, I'll work with you. But in the fall, probably October, I'm going to shadow a teacher for a day, or I'd like to shadow a teacher for a day to actually see what they do on a daily basis. I'm looking forward to that, so I just wanted to communicate that. It's not really a committee, but it's something that I've been involved in. I think it's great.
George, you know why it's so good? That's where I graduated.
There we go. Well, they need to change one of those hallway signs and have it for Brazil Boulevard.
No.
Any other committee reports? Mr. Atkins?
I don't have a committee report, but I do want to report on last night's A Man for All Seasons, featuring a composition written by a well-known composer from England, Martin Ellerby. But it was performed by the Brazos Wood High School Symphonic Band. When I got home, I immediately wrote Mr. Casey and said that was an outstanding performance, irregardless of The Man for All Seasons. Before you got to that, and then it just added on once we got to the Man of All Seasons. For those who don't understand, that was written for Mr. Cook, commissioned by Mr. Casey and the Brazos Wood Band. And so it was an outstanding performance. I didn't get to see Mr. Cook, but he was surrounded by about 350 people. I figured I'd see him tonight, I can talk to him then, but anyway, so, but an outstanding performance by the Bradford Symphonic Band. They were just tremendous, they really were. I mean, yeah, I've listened to a lot of bands over the years, but you know, they're up there with the top, there's no question about that. And Mr. Casey was so excited. When he did that, I figured, must be good. So anyway, congratulations on that, that's quite an honor. So that's my committee report.
And mark your calendars, because May 12th is Jim Cook Day in the city of Lake Jackson. So
Thank you.
every
Thank you.
year, we'll celebrate you.
Well, thank you for those who were there, and the composer just briefly wrote a melody based on the letters that spelled Jim Koch. And despite that, it sounded okay. So thank those who were there, appreciate that very, very much. Thank you. Any other reports? So we're ready to adjourn. If there's no objection, we'll adjourn this meeting. Hearing none, the meeting will stand adjourned. Thank you so much for being here tonight.